Dry, page 53, chapter 5. Today, the toilet is really getting back at us for all the years of cruel and unsanitary labor. It's been making strange gurgling sounds and expelling 6-month-old rotten egg smell. So our current mission is to clean the toilet bowls the best we can and then pour in 2 cups of Kelton's trap seal liquid stuff, so our house can smell like a house again and less like a spiteful septic tank. Page 54. And as supreme ruler of the household, Dad has elected Garrett and me to take care of the toilets. This morning, Dad has taken the liberty of delegating tasks through passive-aggressive post-it notes hidden like Easter eggs all over the house. One on the fridge reads 6 cups of water per day. Another on our shower reads dry bathing only, which consists of shower gel and paper towels. But I think the worst one of all is the clean me please post-it just above the toilets. Dad craftily installed bags under each toilet seat, which we are to throw out after using, like a gigantic camping nightmare. The bag thing is manageable, but having to actually clean the bowl in its current state is just cruel and unusual punishment. Garrett and I started with the downstairs bathroom, seeing as our water is stored in the bathtub adjacent to the toilet. I take a look into the bathtub and realize the water line has really receded since Saturday. This morning, Mom discreetly gave away a couple of gallons to some friends around the corner, with desalination units being set up along the coast. She figures there'll be enough water for everyone soon enough. So why not be generous? If it were up to me, I'd probably do the same. How are we supposed to clean the toilet if we can't use water? Garrett asked, as he crams his hand into those yellow cleaning gloves that squeak when you rub your fingers together. Dad said the cleaning supplies are under the sink. I'm sure you can figure it out. I pinch my nostrils together and dare myself to look into the toilet bowl. Black liquid bubbles to the surface. Why do I have to do it? He nags. Because we're taking turns, I remind him, then appeal to the male ego. Plus, you're a guy. You're naturally going to be better than me at plumbing. He nods in accordance, clearly satisfied to hear me say he's better than me at something. Then he fishes under the sink for cleaning supplies. Bleach will do, I tell him. He eventually settles on the green canister of powdered Comet, a bleach-based multi-purpose cleaner that goes to set it on the edge of the bathtub. The moment its bottom touches the edge, I can already see the worst-case scenario playing in my head. But it isn't until he lets go of the Comet that my worst fear materializes into reality. The container sitting precociously on the uneven edge begins to slip. My heart quickens. Garrett, I yell, which is all I can manage to get out. He spins around, and before he's even able to grasp the situation, the canister of powdered bleach has already slipped down the side of the tub and splashed into the water. He looks at me, his face completely drained of color. Next comes the most torturous of silences. He quickly goes for the Comet, but it slips from his grasp, only to float further away. The water is already clouding with a swirl of murk of poisonous multi-purpose cleaner. And then reality finally hits me. Garrett has just tainted the only water we have. Maybe we can save it, he says, as he finally grasps the Comet and pulls it out of the water upside down, dumping even more liquefying powder into the tub. It's already contaminated, idiot, I tell him sharply. It's your fault, he snaps. You told me to use the bleach. You always have been a klutz. Do you have any idea what you just did? But instead of coming back with another defense, his face constricts. His eyes take on a shiny squint, and tears begin to seep out, his body giving way to hopelessness. My sisterly conscience kicks in, and I'm suddenly wishing that I could take back my words. I'm sorry, he says through snivels, burying his face in his hands. It's okay, I tell him. I give him a hug. Sometimes, something I realize I haven't done in a long time. We have the desalination machines down by the beach. Mom and Dad are going to stock up, remember? Garrett nods, collecting himself. Drinking from the bathtub was totally disgusting anyway, I say, and he laughs, disturbing the tears long enough to bring him back from despair. I agree that I'll be the one to tell Mom and Dad about what happened to the bathwater because Garrett argued that it would sound better coming from me. Of course, the real reason is that he's too afraid to break the news to them himself. For some reason, he thinks their parents are a lot stricter than they really are. But then again, this isn't the routine spoiled dinner, stink bomb, or broken window. I'll tell them, but I won't take the blame, I say to Garrett. I know it was an accident, but you still have to own up to it, because what kind of sister would I be if I didn't teach him the importance of taking responsibility. I go downstairs to tell Mom and Dad, bracing for the worst, but they don't get angry, which I soon realize is much worse than if they had. All of it, Dad says, as if there were a way to divide the comment water from the drinkable water. It wasn't Garrett's fault, I tell him, even though it was. He just was trying to clean the toilet like you asked him to. I expect Mom to say something like, "Don't you go putting this back on us." But she didn't even return my slow lob. This isn't just a screw up, I realize. It's an event. Events bypass anger straight to damage control. We still have the picture in the fridge, Mom says, looking at Dad. Dad nods. The desalination rig should be up and running sometime today. We'll head out there as soon as we can. Maybe we can boil water in the tub, one pot at a time, I suggest, and collect the steam. We made a distillery like that back in the 7th grade as part of a science lab. As I recall, we barely managed to get a test tube of water out of it, but I'll bet Kelton could make a functional one. Did I actually just think about asking Kelton for help? That's a project for another day, Dad says, already overwhelmed with the weight of the news I just delivered. I'm sorry, I tell them. It sucks, and I'm sorry. Don't cry over spilt milk, honey, Mom says. Or poisoned water, Dad adds, which makes me grimace. But I press my lips tight so they can see. I go upstairs to notify Garrett that he won't be put up for adoption, sent to a forced labor camp, or cooked in the meat pies. But he's nowhere to be found. I check the bathroom, the backyard, and even the garage. And that's when I notice that his bike is missing. He took off without telling anyone, so afraid of what Mom and Dad would do. Page 58. Mom and Dad drop everything to go find Garrett. They want us to split up and systematically search every place that he might go. There's a little more worried than I thought they'd be. They always overreacting when it comes to Garrett. He was born a month premature and is sent my parents into an eternal hypersensitive protection mode. Even to this day, if he so much as gets a scratch, it's like they've got the hospital on speed dial for an emergency skin graft. I try to tell myself that it's just my parents being parents, but today I can't help but worry a little considering the circumstances. I agree to check the parks where he and his friends like to hang out and the bike trail that runs parallel to the freeway. I go to get my bike, but both my tires are flat since I haven't really used the thing in years, and the tires don't take the air now no matter how much I pump. All that's left is Garrett's GoPed, which I have no idea how to use, and a pogo stick, which is clearly invented by Satan right after he invented the unicycle. So after exhausting all options, I realize that I'm going to have to ask Kelton for some neighborly help. Maybe he'll let me borrow a bike or create a workaround out of bubblegum and earwax. I ring the doorbell and he answers almost too quickly. No time for small talk. I get right to the point. I have a favor to ask. Garrett's missing and I need a bike. Rather than being weird, he responds like a regular human being. You can use my dad's, he says. I'll go get it. He goes back in and meets me at the side gate. It's a nice bike. Then I realize that he's bringing me his own bike out as well. 2 heads are better than 1, he says, and it's really not a good idea for you to go be out on your own right now. Things might look quiet, but it's always that way right before a storm. Scratch the normal human being thing. That's okay, Kelton. You don't have to come. The cost of borrowing my dad's bike is letting me come with you. He's not menacing words any more than I am, and clearly he's not negotiating. Fine, I tell him. Actually, I don't really mind considering he's officially been moved down from the orange to the yellow on the threat to my sanity scale. He starts with the back trails. We start with the back trails, which eventually spits us back out to the main road near Garrett's school, my high school being just across the street, which gives rise to the thought that maybe he's hiding in the last place we'd expect. The place that he despises more than cauliflower and piano lessons combined. Meadow Creek Elementary School. Eileen left to redirect my bike's trajectory, but before I can even turn, a truck flies by, nearly running us over. At first, I find myself pissed, and someone could drive so recklessly. But as soon as I realize what kind of truck it is, my spine stiffens, and without even thinking, my legs stop pedaling. It's a camouflage green, open-top military truck, packed with armed soldiers. My first thought is stupid. The kind of thing you think before your mind has time to run it past your brain. What the hell? Did my parents call for a freaking National Guard? Quiet before the storm is all Kelton says. My brain has kicked in by now, and I realize that this is much bigger than my AWOL brother. It's pretty disturbing to see war machines traverse the neighborhood you grew up in, and if that's not troubling enough, the truck turns left directly into the high school parking lot. What do you think's going on? I asked Kelton, hoping that his extensive knowledge of useless military factoids will come in handy. I don't know, he says. It's too soon for martial law. English, please. It's when the military takes over, he says. It means that the government brass thinks the local police can't handle the situation by themselves. Well, that would be a good thing, right? I say, really wanting to convince myself. I push back into the seat of the bike. It means we'll be safer. Kelton attempts to smile. Could be, he says, even though I get the feeling he doesn't believe it could be a good thing at all. Maybe. Maybe I'm so sick of maybe. Maybe it's martial law. Maybe FEMA will bring in water trucks. Maybe everything will be fine tomorrow. Living in this world of complete uncertainty is more and more frustrating. So I ride forward and follow the transport truck. It's not just that I'm angry, it's because I have to know. I need to kill the maybe. Kelton is on the same wavelength because he's pedaling right behind me. Page 61. We'd ride past the lower campus and the football stadium, and then the tennis courts, just waiting to see where the truck will stop. But it isn't until we pass the aquatic center that we get our answer. It's not just one truck, but a whole bunch of military vehicles. They got the swimming pool in total lockdown because high school pools are the only ones that are excluded from the frivolous use initiative. They're the only pools left that still have water. The perimeter of the Aquatic Center is now guarded by soldiers with automatic rifles, and spiders into the pool are in a dozen thick fire hoses, which seems to be sucking up water and depositing it into a series of tanker trucks. Then one of the military guards spots us and locks eyes. I don't look away, but I don't get any closer either. It's like somehow I'm the enemy. I should have guessed it, Kelton said, upset at himself for not knowing everything in the history of everything. Those idiots think we're going to drink that. I laugh. I have friends on the water polo team. I've heard stories. They'd have to pay me to drink that water. If they can filter the salt and fish and gut well turds out of ocean water, I'm sure they can manage anything left behind by a water polo meatheads, Kelton says. And for some reason, this strikes a chord, piquing a memory. Something that Garrett said when we were pushing that broken cart in Costco. I gasp, and Kelton looks at me, wondering why. Garrett's friend Jason has a huge fish tank. I'll bet he went to his house to ask for some water. Though Garrett's always been hard on himself, he's never much of a sulker. So it makes perfect sense that he'll try to fix the situation, then run from it. I reach for my cell phone and realize I don't have it. I left it to charge on my nightstand. Stupid. Can I borrow your phone? I should tell my parents. They can get there quicker. He hands me the phone, but after a few seconds of blankly staring at the screen, I realize I don't even know my parents' numbers. In fact, I don't know anyone's numbers by heart except for my stupid 8th grade boyfriend, who is the last person on this or any other planet I'd call. I don't want to admit to Kelton my current uselessness, so I just say, "We're not that far, let's just go." We circle the block and Jason lives on twice. You don't know where he lives, do you? Just shut up, okay? I snap, because I only kind of sort of know where Jason lives. There's a huge tree in the front yard, I tell him. Like, ridiculously huge. But there are no trees that big anywhere. I'm sure it's this street, I say after a third time around. Kelton thinks about it. Let's do some detective work, he says. If the tree was big, it probably was a huge violation of association rules. And believe me, my family knows about that because everything we do is a violation. Your point. My point is, not everyone doubles around on their violations. I finally get it. A stump. We're looking for a stump. And 5 houses up, there it is. Kelton smiles, pleased with himself. Under the circumstances, it might have been annoying, but he deserves a moment here. Someone else might have just thought I was lying or not remembering, but he accepted that I was telling the truth and went from there. That was pretty clever, I admit to him, as we head to the house. He shrugs with false modesty. Just a simple deduction. That's when my own simple deduction is confirmed, because on closer inspection, I can see Garrett's bike behind a dead hedge near the front door. We hop off our bikes and approach the house. The door is ajar. I feel weird knocking on a door that's already partially open, but I do. No response, so I push it open all the way. I go in and Kelton follows. There's a smell here. Awful. Rotten. Could be a dead body, Kelton whispers. I ignore him. The living room looks pretty normal, except for the gaudy Roman statue and the leaf-covered genitalia. No accounting for taste. I don't think anyone's home. Screw it. I cross the living room, head deeper into the house. Garrett! I call out. No response. Anyone home? Kelton hesitates. You know it's perfectly legal to shoot someone for breaking and entering? Fine. You can say, told you so, when I'm dead. Kelton initially follows behind me, but then he pushes his way in front, as if just remembering that Eagle Scouts probably shouldn't hide behind girls. We continue down the hallway. The further we get, the stranger the carpet underneath my feet feels. To feel the squishier it becomes. It's wet, and the smell is worse than before. Then something catches my eye. a tropical fish. No, dozens of them, all dead, spread across the floor in front of the family room. I look up and I realize the giant tank fish is broken. The enormous aquarium reaches all the way to the ceiling, and the collection of rocks and coral that once were a part of the aquatic ecosystem still intact. This is definitely the tank that Garrett was talking about. I move closer to get a better look. A large portion of the tank's face has been smashed in, violently drained of all of its water. That is, except for a thin layer at the bottom, maybe an inch, where a small clownfish sucks in water helplessly as his body partially exposed to the air. I pick it up and move it to another area of the tank where it has a better chance of survival. It was like this when I got here, says a voice from behind. I spin around and there's Garrett standing in the kitchen door. And it's salt water anyway. I'm happy to have found him, but it isn't long until 1,000 thoughts cascade through my head, bursting the levees that maintain my patience. Then what are you still doing here? I say sharply, realizing that I'm pissed that he would send us on a wild goose chase in the first place. Dad said he needed more pasta sauce, so I figured I'd borrow a bottle or two, he explains, avoiding the important question, as he always does. He looks down and kicks an invisible rock. Can't leave empty-handed, you know. Page 65. You have Mom and Dad worried sick. You have us all worried sick, I tell him, which I'm sure he already knows. I exhaled my aggravation and looked around the room, taking in the whole bizarre scene. So what the hell happened here? Garrett shrugged. I think they skipped town and someone must have broken in. Well, says Kelton, looking around at all the dead fish, they definitely didn't come for sushi. It might have been borderline funny in a different situation. Kelton then reaches down and picks up a shard of glass. He holds it up as if to inspect the shard, glimmering in a ray of light, and that's when he notices what he already has. There's blood on the glass. Let's leave, Garrett says. Kelton and I don't need a second invitation. We don't even bother to take the pasta sauce. Once we're back, Mom and Dad don't punish Garrett, which in itself worries me a little. Instead, they're scouring the house for empty gallon jugs to bring to the delineation machines. You don't think they'll let us get more than 2 gallons, Mom says to whoever's listening to her, head back stuck in the pantry. We can always go back for more, Dad yells, probably from the closet somewhere. Garrett emerges from the door to the garage with a large container usually reserved for camping trips. Will this work? Absolutely, Mom says. Garrett, in light of not being punished, is now trying his best to be the perfect son. I give it 5 minutes tops. Page 66. Take care of your brother, Mom says to me, and be careful of the McCrackens. Remember, they invested 10-foot poles for people like that. Dad swings through the kitchen and grabs the car keys from the bowl on the container. Listen to your mother, he says, having no idea what she's even said. Kelton's not so bad, I say, suddenly realizing how strange that sounds coming out of my mouth. Mom and Dad, with empty jugs under their arms, take their way towards the door. Well, his older brother got out of there the second he could. His shoes left skid marks on the doorstep, Dad says. Garrett holds the front door for them graciously, and Mom kisses him on the head. See you in a bit, I say with a smile. They take Mom's Prius, since Dad's car is still convalescing in the garage. It's moments like these, seeing them together, that makes me appreciate the family I have. When you're a teenager, you spend so much time complaining about how lame your parents are, and then they always somehow seem to find a way to remind you that they're actually not as uncool as you want to believe. And now, with the 2 of them gone, for some odd childlike reason, I find myself wishing I could have given them a hug goodbye.